So it's that time of year. You've probably spent more time with your accountant than you have all the rest of the year. You may have already filed your taxes, or you've done things to extend your return, and you're getting ready for the end of the year or the next tax period where you need to file. When we have more interaction with our CPA, we get more advice, we have more conversations, and things happen, right? And you may have, in going through your bookkeeping and going through preparing for your tax return, you may have came up with a conversation of how can I save some money? And one of the first things they may do is say, well, cut some expenses. And that's one of the fastest and easiest ways for them to tell you to save money. But let me ask you a question. Do you go to your doctor and ask for legal advice? Do you go to your attorney and ask them for medical advice? Do you go to your barber and ask them how to get your car fixed? Probably not. And it's in the business world, we have specialists, much like in what you do for a living. There are specialists within the business world. Accountants tend to be better at numbers and taxes. Lawyers tend to be better at law, and so on. So we don't know it all, but we may be knowledgeable enough to ask really good questions or direct clients on what they should do to solve a problem or to seek out better advice. So in doing that, that kind of comes to the question, the whole point of this video. So my name is Kevin Johnson, and I am the CEO of Leverage Consulting, as well as the creator of Leverage U, an online university. So with that, your accountant may have told you, well, just cut expenses. And it's easy because when you look at an income statement, you just see a lot of expenses, and you may see some really big line items in there. And I've done it. I've helped clients. I've walked through income statements with them, and we've very easily sometimes found $20,000, $50,000 that they could save in a year. And it totally makes sense because they've been paying for something they don't use anymore, or it's something that they've evolved beyond and it really doesn't make sense anymore. But when somebody tells you to cut an expense and they really don't know the foundation or some of the rest of it, it would kind of, when you put it in different terms, it would make you question, why are they telling me to cut an expense where it should be making me money? So for example, if you were making payments on a 3D printer that you were using in your office, and they might say, well, if you can, get rid of this. Well, if this 3D printer saves you $20,000 a year in lab expenses, but only costs you $5,000 a year in the actual cost and upkeep of it or the payments of it, why would you get rid of the payment that's saving you ultimately $15,000 a year? That doesn't make sense. Or what if your practice had hired someone to help you renegotiate your insurances and analyze it first? So basically go through all your insurance participation, figure out how much volume you do, how many patients you see, and figure out which of these insurance companies would be most likely to move so you get a higher reimbursement rate. So maybe you pay this person, I don't know, $30,000, $50,000, I don't know what the number would be. But ultimately, after paying them, your reimbursements would go up by $200,000. Why would I cut that expense? That doesn't make sense. And the same thing could be said for consulting. I've worked with clients over the years that they've continued to grow. In fact, this past month I have a client that they're working on their all-time high for their goal. They're going to literally blow it out of the water compared to what they would have done about 2 or 3 years ago. They're going to blow it out of the water this month. And we've been doing this now for years, many, many years, more than 10 years. So they've continually escalated. So the point in all of these is, even though it may look good on paper, it might look good just at an income statement and say, well, just draw a line through this one and get rid of it. It's totally fine. But if this line item expense has an ROI to it, why would you get rid of it? And that kind of brings us to the question of, well, with each one of our specialists within the business field, let's just talk about the CPA for a minute. Because if they're telling you, and really makes us want to look at what's the value or what should I be getting from my CPA? And with the CPA, there's 6 things that you really should be looking for. And you can reassess and look at, what am I getting from my CPA? Because I do have clients periodically that they move around and they find other people. And it's funny, there are some CPAs out there, and this is not knocking anyone, because people want different levels of service. We have different levels of restaurants, we have different levels of CPA services, different levels of everything. You want a car that's literally a basic point A to point B, you can buy that for less. If you want one that has all the bells, buzzers, whistles, and the luxury appointments to it, then you can get that. It's just going to cost more. So with the CPAs, there's really 6 things that you want, and you can go back again and reassess your engagement with your CPA and say, is this really what I'm getting? So number 1 is just a preparation of the data, because you generate income. This is what you do. You provide a service to other people, you generate money, and you really don't have time to do bookkeeping. You don't have time to pull numbers together and reconcile bank statements, all those different things. That's not your wheelhouse. That's why you hire a bookkeeper and an accountant to do those things for you. So that's the first thing. The second thing is interpret the data, because just because we have an income statement and a balance sheet, maybe a statement of cash flows, okay, great. This is not what I went to school for. I don't know how to read these things. I don't know what it's telling me. Is this good or bad? It's like me reading an EKG. I don't know what this thing says. I don't know if this is good, bad. I don't know if I'm ready to die, or this is literally like the benchmark everybody else should be shooting for. You will likely, I'm guessing you might be in the same spot. I don't know how to read these income statements. I don't know if I'm in good shape or bad shape. Tell me. So that's really the second thing that your CPA should be providing you. And it's really kind of a basic function that they should provide you, because that's what you're paying them for if you're engaging them for a yearly service as opposed to just going in at year end. So the third thing is compliance. There's all different kinds of things that are compliance. Just filing your tax returns. It could be filing your 941s and the other employment tax returns that you have to send in. There's other things. You may have to respond to letters from your various governmental agencies. Those are all really compliance things that they should be handling for you. So the fourth thing is they're a problem solver, because I actually worked in tax for about 6 years. In doing that, you will get letters from various governmental agencies, and many times they're wrong. It's just they send a letter and it's up to you to prove them wrong. So in a sense, that's where a CPA can come in and be a problem solver. And you will also likely get audited by employment insurance and different things like that, just because they want to make sure everything that you're doing is to the letter. So that's where the problem solver element also comes in. So that was the fourth thing. Here's the one thing that I really feel like actually number 5 and number 6 are probably the most underutilized. And if you really want to talk about saving money, the fifth thing is tax strategy. That's the one thing that I think when clients show up in an accountant's office, in a sense, we just bring a shoebox in and say, here you go, work miracles. And the reality of it is we need them to do all this behind the scenes work, like Oz and the Wizard of Oz. They do all this work behind the scenes, but then they should emerge from behind the curtain and show you, here's the data, here's what I see, here's the important part, here's the tax strategies that I'm recommending to you to save you taxes. What many don't realize is when we're talking about cutting expenses, tax is your biggest line item expense for all of you. It is the one thing that it never goes away. If you're generating income, net income, then you're going to pay tax on it. That's the way the government works. They want their pound of flesh. So when you are working with your CPA, you need to be talking to them about how do I minimize this tax line. If you put the most amount of effort into that one line, tax, and exhaust it, you should be finding every way under the sun, whether it's leasing your space back to yourself, paying your children. I'm not a tax expert. I'm not here to give you tax advice. I'm sharing things that I've seen other clients do, but you need to exhaust your CPA in terms of tax strategies. So then the sixth thing, because if we've done all the first 5 things really well, then we should be accumulating wealth. That's the ROI of a CPA, is we do the first 4 things to minimize our tax consequence to then generate wealth. Because now that we minimize tax expense, let's just say if your taxes fell by $40,000, big chunk of money. Now imagine if you worked for 20 years, it's a lot of money. And then if you reinvested that money every year, then you now have potentially increased your retirement funds by $1 million, maybe more. It really depends on what you've been able to do with that money. So when you really think about the CPA's advice, is it based on the things that they have control over and the things that they are aware of and what you're getting out of it? And can they look at an income statement and say, I see the ROI in this item? I'm guessing not, because you, like I said in the beginning, you likely don't go to your doctor and ask for legal advice. You don't go to your attorney and ask for medical advice. It's not the wheelhouse, and they don't really, and your lawyer can't read an EKG likely. So we should really, with our CPA, concentrate super heavy just on how we're going to minimize our tax consequence and maximize our wealth accumulation. That is the ROI of a CPA. So if you have questions, you have comments, you have another topic that you'd love for me to cover, I'm putting these videos out weekly. These are for you. So if you like this, hit the like, hit the subscribe, hit the notification button, because as I said, I'm putting out videos just like this every week, things that are going to help you grow your practice and retire sooner.